What's good, y'all? It's your boy Ross back at it again with another video. So I'm going to check out how AEW failed their fans. Now, AEW has received a lot of criticism for 2024. There has been some things that, have worked out for them in their favor. And then there has been a lot of things that have not worked out for them in their favor. And I truly mean this because I don't want people to think I want these guys to fail. I always say this. There's going to be somebody in the comments, oh, you only talk about them negatively. No. Or you don't even really care. I do. And I still check out the product here and there. But I will say this. Hopefully they can get things going when it comes to 2025 and making their product more cohesive. I do think Tony Khan needs to be the person to kind of step back. I think what's hurting the product isn't the wrestlers themselves and the talent that they have there. I think they have a very talented roster. It just goes back to the booking. It's the same thing that was hurting WWE at one point. The same thing, the booking. Tony Khan, he may mean well, but the booking, a lot of stuff doesn't make sense. A lot of stuff is tired. It's overdone. People want it to end. Like the whole situation with Jon Moxley and his crew. I tried to buy into it or tried to get into it. And it's like, outside of Jon Moxley, I really don't even care about the rest of them and what they got going on. I seen that Adam Copeland has made his return. He's supposed to be feuding with them with FTR, and that may have some interest there, but ultimately, I think the route that they're probably going to go is maybe Darby Allin being the one to finally overcome Jon Moxley and become the AEW World Champion. I hope that's the direction that they're going in. I think they have something there, so obviously that's maybe the story that they're going to tell, but even then, it's still, you just kind of, for me personally, and I've seen other people in AEW fans that alike, they're just not as interested, and I think if you have somebody else that's booking the shows, I think you can make the product that much better. But until that happens, and as long as Tony Khan is the head booker, it's gonna be some issues, So we'll see if they're able to rectify that, and we'll see what happens in 2025. But we're gonna check this out. Appreciate all the support. Let's get into it, man.
Onto the scene in 2019. When All Elite Wrestling first burst onto the scene in 2019, fans were hyped. Finally, an alternative, a major competitor to WWE in decades, and for a while, AEW delivered exactly what
they did.
Had been craving. Fresh stories, dream matches becoming reality, CM Punk making his earth-shattering return to wrestling after nearly a decade away, stars like Kenny Omega, MJF, and Darby Allin finally getting national TV exposure alongside household names like Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley, Sting, and even guys like Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole choosing AEW over WWE. Times were exciting, and it looked like AEW was destined to change pro wrestling forever. But somewhere down the line, it looks like All Elite Wrestling has just pretty much lost its way. The excitement has faded, the novelty has worn off, and even the hardcore All Elite enthusiasts are tuning out and wondering if this is the same company that once promised to change the face of pro wrestling. So what caused this paradigm shift? What made AEW go from a legit competitor to barely staying relevant? How did it go from jam-packed stadiums to half-empty arenas? And how did the ratings go from hitting almost 1 million to getting thrashed by WWE's developmental brand NXT? Well, this is Grease from Wrestleology, and today we'll answer all those questions and much more as we dive deep into the downfall and future of All Elite Wrestling.
Oh my God.
Work with pricks constantly. That's what it is.
Let's rewind the clock back to All In 2023. It's supposed to be the biggest show in the history of the company, ironically marked the beginning of its downfall. Prior to his match versus Samoa Joe, the real AEW World Champion CM Punk got into a backstage altercation with Jungle Boy Jack Perry. And this wasn't the first time Punk was linked to backstage drama in AEW. Just a few months prior, Punk had gotten into a backstage fight with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega after going off on Hangman.
Them airing the footage was so stupid. They should not have did that, bro. And Tony, once again, this falls on him, guys. If you want this company to succeed, it falls on Tony Khan. He is the main reason why these things even get out and happen, because he doesn't put his foot down and say, stop all this shit. That's why.
Page during the infamous Brawl-Out incident. This situation led to both Punk and the Bucks getting suspended from AEW. On his return to Collision in June 2023, Punk would claim himself as the real AEW World Champion, and it looked like all this was leading to a dream feud between MJF and Punk to determine the undisputed AEW World Champion,
which I was looking forward to.
But a certain scapegoat had other plans. During a match on Collision, Jungle Boy Jack Perry wanted to use real glass in a segment, but Punk, being the veteran, advised against it for safety reasons.
Of course, because it's stupid. Don't use... Why? It's dumb. It's dumb. Like, just use the sugar glass that they use or whatever the case, but why would the fuck would you use real glass? Bro. No, you don't... No. That's dumb. That is. You're on national television. You're going to fuck up yourself and your opponent. That's dumb. I'm just being honest. It's dumb. So, of course, if I'm a veteran, I'm like, bro, don't do that. You can do something else. Just don't do that. We don't need that on this show. You know, you don't need to even hurt yourself or your opponent like that. Let's just do something else. And y'all know what happened.
Apparently, Jack took offense to this advice and mocked Punk in front of the whole world. And he said,
Jack Perry launching and then crushing
real glass,
crushing the
abdomen. Go cry me a river.
And in my opinion,
Stupid.
down the line, this is going to be one of the biggest butterfly effects in wrestling history.
Yeah,
Punk would go on to quit AEW and return to WWE to one of the loudest pops in history, and even compete side by side with Roman Reigns.
Bro, he's having one of the best runs right now. He had a great run in AEW. He did. And now they let this guy go, and now he's having some of the best, like, feuds in WWE history. All because this nigga Tony Khan can't just control the people that he has employed and tell them to cut the shit.
In War Games. Yeah, imagine telling that to someone 2 years ago. But this wasn't even the worst part. What really damaged AEW's credibility was how Tony Khan handled the whole situation. In April 2024, long after Punk had left the company, AEW would air footage of the backstage altercation between Punk and Jack Perry, which many claimed was for cheap publicity and a desperate attempt to get some eyes on the product. And this has been a common theme in AEW, relying on real-life drama instead of coming up with creative storylines that keep...
I don't know why they air that.
Now, don't get me wrong. There are times when AEW will come up with some great storytelling.
Yes.
Like when Hangman won the title against Kenny Omega.
Yeah.
Or the recent Swerve versus Hangman saga where both men were...
This was good. I enjoyed this. This shit was entertaining. Hey, Adam Page, Swerve, the hate, that was good. I enjoyed that. Man, I enjoyed it. Did they go too far? Possibly so, but this was entertaining. They do have some diamonds in the rough. They do. I love what they're doing with the Hurt Syndicate. I like how they're giving them a serious presence. I can appreciate that. And like I said, hopefully Darby Allin is the one to finally overthrow Jon Moxley. I hope that's the case, because then that would be a good story to tell. But at the same time, for all the good stuff they do have some duds. Some major duds.
Legitimately trying to end each other's careers. But most AEW storylines simply fall flat and lack the compelling drama and character development that keeps viewers invested week after
this
week.
is...
let's just take the Adam Cole MJF double storyline, for example. It was supposed to be the biggest story for AEW heading into All In 2023. And I remember when this summer was happening, this was the most I've ever been invested into AEW. The bromance was captivating.
Yeah, it was working.
Everyone was eagerly speculating who would stab who in the back.
Yes.
But what followed was a massive disappointment. While Cole would reveal himself as the Devil and form the Undisputed Kingdom, he would get injured shortly after, and the Devil storyline would be left hanging, never getting the proper conclusion that it deserved.
Yeah, once he got injured, it was cooked. The storyline was done. I was like, oh, fuck, bro. No.
And these injuries have been a major thorn in AEW's side for quite a long time now, with top names in the company like Kenny Omega, Adam Copeland, and Eddie Kingston being out of action for months due to injury. It has really hurt AEW's star power in a massive way. But injuries aren't the biggest reason that has led to AEW's decline. The biggest reason behind AEW's downfall is something that has been present since the company's early days and has become more apparent in recent months. When AEW first burst onto the scene, fans were super excited to finally have fresh faces on national television. They were thrilled to have names like Kenny Omega, MJF, Hangman Page, and the Young Bucks, guys who really made their name in the indies, and promotions like New Japan Pro Wrestling and Ring of Honor finally getting the spotlight that they deserved. And with names like Jon Moxley, Chris Jericho, and Bryan Danielson coming into the mix, the fans couldn't wait for all the dream matches to unfold. But amidst all the dream match excitement, Tony Khan and company seem to have forgotten one of the biggest elements that makes pro wrestling special. The one thing that keeps fans glued to their screens and keeps them coming back week after week. You see, if we take a quick glance at WWE today, the Bloodline saga has been going on for almost 5 years. Even now, there are always new developments. There's always something that keeps the fans invested. Every match, every segment seems to serve some purpose in the big picture. Whether it's Kevin Owens beating the hell out of Cody Rhodes for siding with Roman Reigns, whether it's Drew McIntyre targeting and taking out Sami Zayn and Jey Uso for realigning with Roman Reigns, whether it's Seth Rollins refusing to align with the OG Bloodline for War Games, every piece ties together into a smooth narrative. That's what makes compelling TV. And it's not just now. Let's look at the biggest feuds in wrestling history, whether it's Rock versus Austin, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker, John Cena versus Edge, or even Daniel Bryan winning the world title, overcoming the Authority at WrestleMania. Each great moment has had one crucial element that made it memorable. But All Elite Wrestling seems to have lost sight in the basic wrestling principle. They keep booking these dream matches with little to no build at all. Whether it's a pay-per-view like
And that's the problem. Some of the best feuds or best, just storylines are individuals that built something up. Still one of my favorite feuds they've ever had, that they've ever put on, is CM Punk is MJF. That's a 5-star classic feud because there was story behind it. They built on it and then they worked with it. And it wasn't just, oh, this is a dream match. This is a dream match, but now you have the future of the business with going against someone that, obviously a lot of people were big fans of, a legend in the business, both great talkers on the microphone, both great in-ring performers, and they're giving you something memorable. Like, that is a memorable feud that people can always go back and look like, man, this was great. Because the story that they had, MJF looking up to CM Punk and feeling some type of way when CM Punk left wrestling and all this other stuff, like, you could build off that. And I feel like they have the opportunities to do some great storytelling. It's just they don't. Or they don't know how to, but clearly they do, because in certain situations, they do. They tell some great stories that make you invested. Now you care. Now you want to see these guys fight. Instead of just putting classic dream matches, yeah, that's cool. They're going to give you a great match. But wrestling does involve story because that's what keeps people coming back.
Forbidden Door or an episode of Collision, most AEW cards seem like randomly thrown together matches at the last minute instead of payoffs for compelling stories that the fans want to watch. And in my opinion, this is the biggest reason that's turning even hardcore AEW fans into skeptics. I mean, look at the current state of AEW. The biggest story currently is Jon Moxley basically turning himself into NWO Hulk Hogan, holding the company hostage and rebuilding it in his own image. Now, I'm not going to be a Debbie Downer and dismiss the storyline before it even gets a chance to play out, but looking at AEW's history with such stories,
and it's basically the same thing. If you guys remember, Sting is not Sting. Darby is Sting. Darby is Sting to what Sting was to the NWO. That's literally it. And hopefully it works out. But the way they're going about it, it it's like it's missing something. It's like it has potential, but it's still not resonating like it should.
Honestly don't really expect a huge payoff. And I mean, just look at the whole AEW versus the Elite saga, which started hot with the Bucks and Okada taking out Kenny Omega and Tony Khan.
Yeah, it started pretty good.
What did that lead to? Yeah, you're right. Nothing at all.
Nothing.
And speaking of Okada, oh boy, let's talk about AEW's booking of Okada. This is one of the biggest stars in Japanese wrestling in the last decade. I mean, just look at Okada from any Wrestle Kingdom show. The aura is off the charts. The man is treated like a god, a true main event star rivaling the presence of names like CM Punk and maybe even Roman Reigns. But ever since Okada joined AEW, he's been relegated to the upper mid-card, wrestling on Collision, and comedic bits like this.
Yep.
I guess.
I pressed the wrong button. I'm so sorry.
Bitch.
Now, I love a good comedy and a bit of wrestling, but if that's the best you can come up with for one of the biggest names outside WWE in the past 10 years, then there's some serious soul searching to be done, Tony Khan. And it's not just Okada who has been mishandled. Let's talk about the questionable booking of guys like Malachi Black, Miro, or Keith Lee. It seems to be a reoccurring pattern at this point. Big name signs with AEW, they get the All Elite graphic, they get hyped for 2 weeks, and then they get lost in the shuffle. Next thing you know, the wrestling on Collision or Rampage. It's like Tony Khan has way too many toys and he doesn't know what to do with them. The same has been the case with Mercedes Moné. When Mercedes, formerly known as Sasha Banks, first arrived in AEW, fans thought the AEW women's division was finally going to be resurrected. And while things looked quite promising for a few weeks with some tension between Britt Baker and Moné, the CEO's arrival hasn't quite lived up to the expectations. The booking of these stars just seems all over the place. No long-term plans, just thrown together matches and segments. Well, except the booking of one Chris Jericho, which has been consistent, and by consistent, I mean consistently awful. Okay? All of Jericho's storylines from the Inner Circle to JAS to the Learning Tree all seem to follow the same pattern, and the fans have made it evident that they don't like it at all.
For the Mozart of the mat game.
Telling him to retire is wild.
Who has already taught plenty of
Please retire.
This is a big problem. And speaking of problems, let's address the elephant in the room, the sheer number of championships in AEW. At this point, it feels like everyone and their grandmother has a title. When you have multiple world championships, multiple tag team championships, and titles that barely get defended or even shown on TV, it dilutes the importance of being a champion. Now, you could make the same argument for WWE now because they're starting to create the women mid-card titles and they had the Crown Jewel one, but let's be honest, the Crown Jewel one is like only a one-time thing a year. I feel like the only title in WWE that really doesn't matter is probably the Women's Tag Team Championship, but everything else, at least...
I've definitely said that. I think a lot of people have said that. The women's tag team titles, they don't really matter, bro. They don't. They honestly, they don't. I know they're trying to do something with them, but they still don't really care too much about them. But I think they'll, do well with the women mid-card titles for sure. But the tag titles, women's tag titles, it's kind of a situation for sure.
Is made important even a little bit on TV, unlike some of these AEW titles. But all of these issues ultimately point to one central problem: Tony Khan's leadership, or rather the lack thereof. Look, I'll give credit where it's due. Khan's passion for professional wrestling is undeniable.
Oh, for sure.
A lifelong fan who managed to create a legitimate alternative to WWE. But being a passionate fan doesn't automatically make you a good booker or leader. The signs have been there from the beginning too. Instead of taking feedback from the vets in the business or listening to the broader audience, Tony Khan seems to be more focused on pleasing a small vocal section of the internet wrestling community. He's booking shows like a fan playing with action figures rather than a promoter building compelling, long-term storylines and characters that draw money. What's even more concerning though is his lack of backbone when it comes to making tough decisions. Whether it's being unable to tell the talents no when they pitch ideas that don't make sense, or his reluctance to streamline the bloated roster, Khan seems more interested in being the cool boss rather than being an effective leader. Just look at his Twitter behavior, constantly defending ratings, making excuses for poor attendance, and getting into arguments with critics instead of focusing on improving the product. That is not what a leader of a major wrestling company should be doing. As a result, the product feels directionless, storylines start and stop without proper resolution, talents get lost in the shuffle, and the actual audience in arenas keeps shrinking while Khan celebrates the social media engagement numbers. Remember the Dynamite ratings that once threatened to overtake Raw in 2019 and 2020? They're now struggling to maintain 500,000 viewers and are constantly getting beat by NXT, dude. Yet instead of addressing these fundamental issues, we get more titles, more random debuts, and more excuses from Tony Khan. So what's next for All Elite Wrestling? Well, the company still has some bright spots.
They do.
They get it right, like with the recent Swerve Strickland and Hangman storyline, or some of the recent Will Ospreay matches. They show glimpses of what made fans fall in love with AEW in the first place.
For sure.
But for AEW to truly turn things around, some major changes need to happen. First and foremost, they need to simplify things, cut down the number of titles, and focus on building compelling stories with the incredible talent that they already have rather than constantly bringing in new faces. They need to stop relying on dream matches and start building proper feuds again. Give us reasons to care about these matches and watch the shows beyond just these two good wrestlers are gonna wrestle. Remember how invested fans were in the Hangman Page story on his road to overcoming self-doubt and winning the AEW World Championship? That's the kind of long-term storytelling that made AEW special. The company also desperately needs someone with creative experience to help guide the ship. Tony Khan clearly has passion and knowledge of wrestling history, but his booking decisions suggest that he needs help structuring the shows and telling coherent stories. Whether that's bringing in experienced writers or listening to more of the veterans in the locker room, something there needs to change 100%. And most importantly, AEW needs to rediscover its identity. What made them different from WWE wasn't just the in-ring style, it was their ability to tell authentic stories that felt fresh and exciting. They need to stop trying to be WWE light and start trying to be AEW again. The only thing that really did kind of change for the AEW and WWE like war was the fact that WWE is just genuinely a better product right now than it was in 2019 to 2020. But when it comes to AEW, I mean, the talent is there, the resources are there, the fans still want AEW to succeed, but unless these fundamental issues are addressed, we might be watching the slow decline of what could have been one of the biggest success stories in pro wrestling history. It'll be interesting to see what the future holds for AEW going into 2025. I certainly hope that the company can bounce back and truly rebuild itself. But if the recent Rey Fenix Twitter drama is any indication, then things don't really look too promising. But let me know what you think. Will AEW survive 2025? What changes do you think the company needs to make, and what do you...
I believe they can. Like I said at the beginning of this video, this is not to just shit on the company. I'd still, check out stuff from time to time. I check out their recent pay-per-view, just to see what was going on. That's what I do, So I may not cover it or, talk about it as much, but I do check it out because there's still people and wrestlers that I'm interested to see in the stories that I want to, actually go somewhere meaningful. So I hope that they can turn it around, but it all depends on Tony Khan getting the help he needs when it comes to the booking and the writing. Nothing will change unless Tony Khan kind of takes a step back. It's the same thing with WWE. When Vince had to leave and he was forced out, things got better when Triple H took over. And I'm not saying force out Tony Khan. I'm saying he needs to listen to more people and get some more help from people that have actually booked shows and have experience when it comes to booking cohesive storytelling moments. So that way, more people will be like, okay, I like this. I like what they're doing here. I'm invested. Because the wrestling can be 5 stars every week. But if the story's not there, eventually you lose the people. You want the story to enhance what's happening in the ring, so now you can care a little bit more. So we'll see. Hopefully they are able to turn the ship around. So comment down below. Let me know some other wrestling related videos y'all want me to check out. Definitely will. Appreciate all the love, support. Road to 150K. Appreciate y'all kicking with me. See you on the next one. Peace.